You know that feeling, right? You spend years learning a language in school, you ace the tests, and then you find yourself in a real conversation and you're just lost. Well, today we're going to break down a really powerful method designed to fix that exact problem by learning a language the way it's actually spoken. So let's just get right into it. Why does this happen? It's a super common experience. You know all the grammar rules, you've memorized lists of vocabulary, but when you hear native speakers just talking to each other, it feels like a totally different language. What is going on there? And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got that perfectly correct but kind of stiff textbook English. And on the right, that's the real stuff. The natural, flowing phrase you'd actually hear someone say. That gap between the two, that's what we're here to solve. This really gets to the heart of the problem. This huge difference between the language we study in a classroom and the language people use every single day to, live their lives. The language coach behind this whole method, Vanessa, she puts it perfectly. The goal isn't to learn that old textbook stuff that nobody uses. It's about learning real-life English. It's not about throwing grammar out the window, but about learning the language people actually use to connect with each other. So if memorizing vocabulary and drilling grammar rules isn't the complete answer, what is? Well, what if we just flip the whole learning process completely on its head? It's called the conversation breakdown method. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also kind of profound. Instead of starting with abstract rules and word lists, you start with a real, live, unscripted conversation. That conversation, that becomes your textbook. And the method itself, it's really just two simple steps. First, you just immerse yourself in a real conversation. You get a feel for the natural flow. And then step 2, you start to break it down, piece by piece. So let's dive into that first step. All right, step 1, immerse yourself. Now, this is way more than just, passively having something on in the background. This is about actively engaging with the raw material of a language. So what immersing really means here is listening to the messy, authentic flow of real people talking. In the original source, Vanessa has a conversation with her neighbors about how they moved from New York City. You hear interruptions, you hear them talking over each other, you hear the different speeds and the natural rhythm of storytelling. You're not just hearing words, you're hearing language in its natural habitat. Okay, so you've listened to the conversation, you've got a feel for it. Now comes the really fun part. This is the breakdown phase, where listening turns into real, active understanding. And this, right here, this is the secret sauce. Instead of just giving you a list of new vocabulary, the method pulls out specific, interesting phrases and links them directly back to the story, the exact moment they were used. And that connection is what makes them stick in your brain. Let's look at a real example, the phrase, to have time to kill. Okay, the definition is pretty clear. It means you've got some free time while you're waiting for something. But a definition on its own is, well, it's pretty abstract. It's easy to forget. But now, listen to it in context. One of the neighbors is talking about her commute to high school in New York City. She says she would do homework on the subway because she had, an hour to kill. All of a sudden, that phrase isn't a rule anymore. It's a story. You can picture it, right? A teenager on a noisy subway doing her homework. That image makes the phrase completely unforgettable. Here's another great one, to see myself. This is a figurative one. It's not about actually looking in a mirror. It's about picturing your future, imagining where you'll be. Again, the definition is helpful, but the story is everything. So in the conversation, the neighbor, Danny, is explaining how he told his future wife pretty early on that he didn't see himself living in New York forever. I mean, wow, that's a huge, vulnerable moment in a relationship. Now the phrase is tied to this powerful, personal story about being honest about your life goals. It just hits different, And let's look at one last example, to have something to offer. This just means that something has valuable qualities. You can say it has a lot to offer, or nothing to offer, or, as we're about to see, none of this to offer. This line comes up when the couple is talking about how they fell in love with hiking and being outdoors. And they had this realization, this aha moment, that New York City, for all of its amazing qualities, had none of this to offer. The phrase perfectly captures their journey of discovering what was truly important to them. It's tied to that feeling of choosing fresh air over a concrete jungle. So when you step back and look at all this, what's the big takeaway? Why is this method so darn effective? Well, it all comes down to one thing: the incredible power of context. Think about it. When you learn this way, you're not just memorizing words, you're training your ear to actually listen. You're pegging new vocabulary to memorable stories, which is a total hack for your memory. I mean, our brains are literally wired for stories. They create these little emotional hooks that make information so much stickier. And most importantly, you're learning language for what it's actually for: sharing real human experiences. So, at the end of the day, it's this simple. Traditional methods teach you a rule. This method, it teaches you the story behind the rule. And that, well, that makes all the difference. We remember stories, not spreadsheets. And that kind of leaves you with the big question, doesn't it? This whole idea of learning from stories and context, it's not just for language. I mean, think about it. Math, science, history, pretty much anything. What else could we understand on a much deeper level if we always started with the real-world story instead of just the abstract rule?